Part 1. The theory. What is orthographic mapping? Why is it so important? And what orthographic mapping activities can I do with my child? Simply put, orthographic mapping is the mental process that we use to remember words by linking its individual sounds, called phonemes, with their graphemes, that is, their graphic representation or letters. A very basic example is the sound of the letter M is and the graphic representation is the letter M itself. Sound and letter are mapped out in our brain. Let's think for a moment. What are words? They're just strings of familiar sounds that come in a specific order. For instance, the word at is just a string of two familiar sounds, at, that follow the specific order a in the first place, t in the second place, and that we've heard so many times that it has been stored in our library of words. The word at, as we have just seen, is formed by the individual sounds at. This specific string of sounds in that specific order or word, as we have just learned, is added to our library of oral words, so we are able to recognize the word at and its meaning as soon as we hear it. This is the mental shortcut or trick that we take to process the information really quickly. Now it is a question of adding another leg to the equation of familiar string of sounds. The third leg is the written representation. We need to link the string of sounds to the written representation. So, through orthographic mapping, when we are practicing and learning words, there is a mental process going on in which we map a string of familiar sounds that come in a specific order, those are our words as we have just learned, to the letters used to represent those sounds until that specific string of letters in that specific order also becomes familiar and inevitably linked to the string of sounds that we're practicing. How can we do this successfully? To successfully link our library of oral words to the library of written words, we need to be really good decoders. A strong phonics foundation is crucial. Why? Because it is proven to be the most efficient and effective way to actually achieve our objective. You may be wondering if we can rely on visual memory at all, and the answer is yes, you can, but unfortunately, this is a very inefficient method. You are going to collapse and have problems with that strategy at some point. This is because we do not have the visual cognitive capacity to store 30 to 75k words in our brain. That is the average number of words in our vocabulary. By the way, if you find the topic as fascinating as I do, and you really want to dig into it, you can check this book, Equipped for Reading Success, as the author, David Kilpatrick, is one of the leading experts on this view of teaching reading called The Science of Reading. I will leave links on the video description. Part 2. Activities and tips. Activity number 1. Using orthographic mapping to learn high-frequency words. First activity is aimed at learning high-frequency words using orthographic mapping principles. For extra convenience, we are going to be using a free online game called the High-Frequency Words Game, which is available completely for free at our website, learningreadinghub.com. So let's play. First of all, we hear
at. How many sounds can you hear?
We hear the high frequency word and then we're asked how many sounds can we hear. In this case, 2.
Put the letters in the right order.
2 boxes appear and then we need to put the letters in the right order.
Am. How many sounds can you hear?
Again, we're asked how many sounds we can hear for this word. In this case, 2 again.
Put the letters in the right order.
2 letters appear.
And how many sounds can you hear?
Again,
put
2.
the letters in the right order.
We put the letters in the right order. By the way, if you have a beginner reader, you may need to be by his side or her side for working out the numbers of individual sounds, repeating the sounds slowly for him or for her. It might seem easy, but it can be tricky for them if they have not trained their ears to hear the individual sounds in words, especially because we are not used to hear the sounds in isolation, but as parts of words. Okay, it looks simple, right? But let's recap and see what we're doing here with this simple game. We're first training our ears to hear the individual sounds in words, so building up our phonemic awareness. Right after that, we're mapping or tying together the sounds, the individual sounds called phonemes, to the graphemes, the representation of sounds, or in other words, the letters. Studies show that we need around 5 repetitions until we stored words in our memory. So imagine the power of doing this a number of times with your child. Of course, the number of repetitions depend on factors such as the level of phonemic awareness and the decoding skills of the child, the complexity of the word, and the familiarity of the word. Next time we encounter one of these high-frequency words, we will be using that shortcut of going to our memory of familiar words rather than doing all the process of sounding the word out from scratch. At the time I'm recording this video, I haven't had the chance to include all the high-frequency words in the game. Give me time, it takes a lot of time, but also tell me if you find it useful so I can prioritize this. But in the meantime, if you want to use this activity with your child for the rest of the high-frequency words that are still not included in the game, or for practicing any word whatsoever, here comes activity number 2. Activity number 2, using counters and boxes. So for this orthographic mapping activity that I'm going to be doing with my daughter, I only need some counters or tips or something of the kind, a pencil, and a blank piece of paper. Well, in this case, I'm using a template that I created. You can actually download this template on the video description for free if you want, but you can easily do this on a blank piece of paper. Just divide it into sections. One of them remains blank, and that is where you're gonna put your counters, and on the other section, you draw boxes. In this case, I'm using 5 boxes. So Mommy already explained what the activity is about. It's an orthographic mapping activity. Do you want to explain what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mummy says a word.
Okay.
Then I put the counters, the boxes, how many sounds I hear. Then I write the word.
That's right. Okay. So I'm gonna say the first word, okay?
Yes.
Okay, the first word is listening ears. Shop. Shop. Move the counters first. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now we take the counters out. And can you write what word you heard? Listen. That's perfect. But the third sound goes in the third box.
Sorry,
So
Mummy.
we erase that one and maybe you can put... That's great. That's perfect. Okay.
Oh, that looks like an N.
That's fantastic. Okay. Next word, okay? Listening ears. Let's see if you need to fill all the boxes or not. It depends on the number of sounds. Okay, we have our counters. And the next...
One is...
And the next word is... chop. Chop.
Chop.
No. First move the counters. Good. Are you ready to write down the word? Okay. That's so good. Now let's read it.
Chop.
Chop. Chop. Very good. For a less challenging variation of this game, you can show them the word first and then hide it. Also, instead of using counters or tips, you can use a popper like this one. Or you can ask them to tap their bodies as many times as the number of sounds that they can hear in a word. Some tips and tricks for making these activities extra effective are: work on words that contain sounds that you've just taught to your child explicitly. For instance, after teaching your child the sound ch, which is normally represented by C plus H, you can practice words that contain that sound, such as ting, chat, chop. Or after teaching them about the sound V, which is represented by the letters T plus H, you can practice words that contain that sound, such as this, that, then, them, there. Tip number 2. You can also use two similar sounds in the same way I did with my daughter to make sure that they fully understand the difference. Tip number 3. Use orthographic mapping principles to teach irregular words. Don't think that this process only works for regular words that do not present unexpected spellings. No, it works just the same. If you want to learn more about this, I suggest you watch the video Ideas for Teaching High-Frequency Words You Probably Didn't Know About. I will leave you a link here and on the video description, because I offered you a good explanation on how to go about it with irregular words. Final thoughts. To finish up, I just wanted to mention a couple of extra things. First of all is that you don't need to do this for all the words in the English language. Also, some kids naturally learn to do this, but if you teach them explicitly with this strategy, with these activities, you are really facilitating the path. This is especially great for kids at risk of reading difficulties. And finally, I also wanted to remind you that it is key to have phonics skills and more specifically phonemic awareness in order to do this successfully. Thanks for watching. This video, as I said, took me a long time, so I really hope you found value. And if that is the case, I would really appreciate if you could hit the like button, because that way we're making sure that this message, this information spreads out and helps more people. And if you're interested in videos like this one, don't forget to subscribe.